let's take a moment to talk about our sponsor.
Are you a veteran DM with more campaign ideas than prep time? Yeah, of course you are. Aren't we all? Does your party have a habit of going to the person or place that you would least expect? If they're like my group, they sure do. What if I were to tell you that I could put a team of professional writers alongside you at your desk to cut down on your campaign prep? What if I were to tell you that you could bring them along with you at your game sessions for when those pesky players go off the rails? Sounds pretty good, huh? With Describe, we could do just that. These narratives vividly describe monsters, places, spells, people, you name it. It's there. And there are more than 6,000 of these easy to search up, copy and pastable, beautifully written narratives right at your fingertips. I've been running games for the better part of 40 years, and I must admit, I've gotten a bit lazy. I just don't have the time I used to. And I've been using Terrain, which is minimizing my need for descriptive narratives. Stuff is right out there in front of you. Why describe it? When I was prepping for an Acorn's Journey, a D&D story, I used Describe quite a bit. When you listen, you can hear it. One of the things I like the most about Describe is that if the narrative doesn't fit perfectly with your encounter, it's easy to modify while still sounding really good. I did that an awful lot. I think this makes the more than 6,000 narratives that they have available for you even more valuable. It almost doubles what you have at your fingertips. You should give it a shot. Describe has graciously provided us with a discount for our listeners. Head on over to describe.com/DMD. That's DSCRYB.com/DMD. Use the code DMD at checkout to try Describe for 2 weeks free. Links will be in the show notes.
And now, back to the show.
Greetings and salutations, DMs, GMs, referees, judges, game operations directors, and all other varieties of storytellers. This is your DM, Scott, and it's time for another DM Quick Tip. It's our Homebrew World Kobolds. Let's talk kobolds, but not the kind of kobolds that you're used to. We're talking about Heimurrin's kobolds. You're going to meet one such kobold in An Acorn's Journey, a D&D story. This kobold, of course, is the samurai Longwei. If you meet him, you will soon realize that Longwei is very different from how you may imagine a kobold. In Heimurrin, they are quite different than those of the Forgotten Realms, Mystara, or any other Dungeons & Dragons campaign setting you may have come across. Perhaps they're even different than those in your homebrew world. Kobolds are closely related to dragons. I must confess, though, that I've always preferred the dog-like kobolds of the older versions of Dungeons & Dragons over these dragon-like ones of the newer editions, but for our world, these tiny dragons work better. At one time, the skies of Heimurrin were filled with dragons. The dragons were feared, respected, and worshipped by the young race known as man. In time, egos grew, and eventually the dragons found themselves at odds with the race of giants that lived in Heimurrin. War was the result, and soon it was realized that it meant the end for the dragons and the giants. So saddened by the behavior of the dragons, the god Jormungandr punished the dragons by cursing their clutches. Fewer and fewer dragons would be born over the next hundreds of years until eventually no dragons at all would be born. Centuries passed, and the skies of Heimurrin were no longer filled with these majestic creatures. Even today, many are uncertain whether or not dragons still live in the world. After Jormungandr cursed the dragons, some eggs never hatched, while others produced a race of bipedal dragon-like creatures that began to call themselves the Draken. These creatures were not unlike the dragonborn, dragonkin, and half-dragons you may know from other campaign settings. Some clutches produced different dragon-like creatures. And these creatures became known as the kobolds, and they settled in a continent far to the east, among other races, such as the Turtles. The kobolds developed a martial system of government. They were ruled by warlords and despots. Conquest is what the kobolds yearn for the most, but this conquest must be done with honor, lest they bring disgrace upon their houses. Conquest does not have to happen on the battlefield, though. It could be the completion of a challenging project, such as the building of a fortress, the cultivation of a rare plant, the taming of a wild animal, or even a work of art. To a kobold, honor is everything. This concept of honor permeates their society. It is embedded within the race. This concept of honor and upholding the honor of the individual
And more importantly, the house is not confined to the warrior caste. Bakers, tinsmiths, and even lowly rat catchers strive to maintain their honor. While their honor is not preserved on the battlefield like warriors, it is preserved by performing their craft at the highest level possible. Honesty and the preservation of the dignity of their work, no matter how lowly it may be. Elders are highly prized in the kobold society. They are teachers, historians, and they play an intricate part in every aspect of kobold society. The education of a young kobold begins with the elderly of their society. Kobolds do not write books, scrolls, or keep records as many races do. The elderly are their books, and their youth will spend hours with them learning from those that lived history, those whose experiences are priceless. They are granted the wisdom of their elders at a very young age. If you're interested in learning more about Heimurrin's kobolds, listen to our actual play, An Acorn's Journey, a D&D story, and you will meet Longwei, the wandering samurai, and his companion from the Far East, Madri. We'll talk about Madri's people in the next few months. If you're interested in the actual play and the characters, consider heading over to Patreon and supporting the podcast. There, you will be able to listen to the prequel of An Acorn's Journey, a D&D story called The Battle of Birch Grove, as well as enjoy many other Patreon exclusives. Now, there are many kinds of kobolds across many realms, and these are just ours. We'll see you next time in the dojo.